Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thumma ma ba'd, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So, inshallah, we will we carry on with our series, which is going through the surahs of the Quran. So, I think we're familiar now that we go through various stories, and in those stories, then we mentioned the surahs, which the order in which they appear in the Quran, and we're talking about some of the themes of the surahs, like we talk about some of the things about the surahs as well, inshallah, where we can. So, inshallah, that is of benefit to us. So, where we left off last week, we continued on from our fifth story, which is the messenger, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this story is named the messenger because it started with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Surah number 73, Al-Muzammil, the one who's wrapped up in a blanket. So we said this is wrapped up in comfort. He was wrapped up like in a comforting way. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, but stand up for the tahajjud prayer, stand up for the night prayer to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to help you in your daily tasks. And he was also Al-Mudaththir, Surah number 74. He was also the one covered up, and this was out of fear, if you remember, when he saw Jibreel and he rushed down to Khadija and he was covered in the sheet. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Qum fa'andir, stand up and warn people. So now you must warn people, warn others about what? About Al-Qiyamah. Al-Qiyamah, Surah number 75. Qiyamah, the standing up. The standing up is the day of judgment, we understand, right? So warn people about, one of the things you warn people about is the day of judgment. So don't stand up. So when you stand up, like Al-Qiyamah means standing up, but don't stand up too proud. Don't stand up too proud, like the arrogant Al-Insan, like someone who's so arrogant, like an arrogant insan. So don't stand up like that. So Surah number 76 is Al-Insan, Al-Insan. And this surah, Al-Insan, which is the human being, and we said that this surah also is a dahr. Another name for it is a dahr, time. So we started talking about the surah number 76, Surah Al-Insan. And this surah, you should stand up. Don't stand up too proud and like the arrogant Al-Insan, the human being. So we started talking a bit about this surah number 76, and we said that in this surah, we're reminded to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, that there was a time when we didn't even exist. Like we said, just think about a year before you were even born. Like, did you exist? No one knew anything about you yet. You weren't even worth mentioning. You were just no one knew your existence, your characteristics, etc. And you were created from like a mixed fluid. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the surah. He created you from a mixed fluid, and the reason why he created you is to test you. That's why he gave you hearing and seeing. So and he guided you to two paths. The path which is the right path, and he's shown you the wrong path as well. So you can choose which path you want to go on. So this is like the way the surah begins. And we mentioned in the surah as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the people who are like some qualities about the people who are like righteous, the good people who are going to earn Jannah. And one of the qualities, like we said, we're talking about these people, they feed food, even though they need their own food, they feed the food, they feed it to others, and they feed it to, we said, the miskeen, the orphans, and the prisoners. And we talked about this. They feed it to the prisoners. And why prisoners? Because prisoners are in a war, in a battle. You capture one of the sides, they capture prisoners. The prisoners are like foreigners. They're from the other side, and no one cares about prisoners really, But even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is even asking us, or asking the Muslims, to take care, even looking after those people who are your enemies in the battle that you captured. So that's how much humanity, like Islam teaches us, about towards other people. Even look after the prisoners. And we mentioned that in this also that so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that believers are people, they give from their own food. Like you don't give from leftovers. You give like what you would eat for yourself. That's what you give to others. Like you make sure it's like good quality. So have compassion and be merciful to humanity, basically. So it's it doesn't, like, as Muslims, we're not told to first look at the other person. Are they Muslim or not? Should I then give them charity or feed them? No, humanity comes first. Like, we are all, Islam teaches us that we are all brothers and sisters, and even wider, for all of humanity, you look out for even the non-Muslims who are, and that's what how it was in Makkah in the start. Because if you think about it, when the surah was revealed, Surah Al-Insaan, like at this time, um, how many Muslims were there? Like, this is a Meccan surah. Like, how many Muslims were there? There weren't that many Muslims, but there were like prisoners, poor people who are non-Muslims. So this was in effect, this is for looking out for all of humanity. So, and on top of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the people that feed the food, like give to others, they don't expect any thanks. So, like when you do something good, you think like you do something good for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or for others, don't expect them to even say thank you, because you're not doing it for the people, you're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the quality Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these people have is that they don't expect even thank you. They just say we're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's something really amazing that we can learn as well. And the thing is that in the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we said, gives a detailed descriptions of Jannah as well. It's really amazing. And we said how this is even some Mufassirun have said this is even a description of Jannah for the women, especially Fatima radiallahu anha, because she was the one who did this good deed of feeding. She fed the food to the miskin, the orphans, and to the prisoners of war. So, and you can understand actually in the surah that the description of Jannah is mentioned, and it's very related to like what women like, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions very intricate details. Or the cups, for example, they're going to be made from crystals made of silver, and they're going to be drinking. They're going to have like fine robes of silk with them green, and they're going to be like there's going to be gold in these robes as well. And there's going to be drinks as well, zanjabil of like just ginger drink, and gafur, camphor, the special drinks. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in detail. Jannah is an amazing description in the surah. So, I'd recommend, like, if you were to go through the surah, inshallah, and you get a very good idea, like good description of Jannah. And also, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the surah, those who he mentions those who enjoy the pleasures of this world. So they are fully focused on this world. They're not going to get any joy in the hereafter. Basically, they're not going to get anything in the hereafter. So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who are always constantly aware and making to do things for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for His sake. So Surah Al-Insan 76. So we're saying, don't stand up too proud, too arrogant, like the arrogant Al-Insan, like the arrogant human being. Instead, don't be proud, right? What should you do instead? Instead, remember a dahr, a time, because remember this surah is also another name for it, a dahr, time. Remember a time humans didn't even exist. Because like we talked about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, like, there was a time that you didn't even exist. So just remember that time. But when you didn't exist, but something else did exist.
Allah.
Oh yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala existed, but another creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did exist. So be humble. Remember a time when you didn't exist. So maybe like 1 year before you were born, fine, you didn't exist. But even like millions of years ago, just when when humans weren't even there, something else did exist. It's a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is it? Surah number 77. So it's something on the earth. Surah number 77.
Do I know it?
Yes. I'm not sure. I think that you may not have done it. Isa, okay. Jazakallah khair for that, Isa. Al-Mursalaat. Al-Mursalaat. This is also an amazing surah. Al-Mursalaat. Okay. And this surah. Good. Yeah. Well done. Okay. Jazakallah khair for that, Isa. For that. So, Al-Mursalaat, which basically, which means, this means, can anybody help me with what it means? By the way, does anybody know? What does Al-Mursalaat mean? So Al-Mursalaat is to do with those, something to do with something which is sent to us. So Al-Mursalaat, are basically referring to the winds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to the winds and referring to the angels who send the winds. So just remember a time when humans didn't exist. But the winds which are sent, they did exist. So just remember that time. So that is what we're talking about. So Al-Mursalaat is the winds that scatter. Okay, let me expand this. I didn't expand this. Okay. Okay, the winds that scatter. So basically, Al-Mursalat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to winds here, the winds that scatter. And so just remember, when humans didn't exist, but Al-Mursalat, the winds that scatter, they did exist. So what we learn from the surah, this surah again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the main theme about the surah, like a lot of the surahs, like in this last section of the Quran, the last, as we approach the last 30th juz, is the Day of Judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he talks a lot about the Day of Judgment in here, just to remind us, because the thing is that we understand this, that in our daily, when we go about our daily lives, etc., you get so busy that you don't even think about the Day of Judgment. You don't think that there is another life coming up because you're so involved in this life. Everything becomes like so important. The be all and end all becomes this life. Like the issues you're having, the things you're looking out for, the plans you're making, short-term plans, long-term plans. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and you look out for basically the education, about the job, about money. Everything you look out for is to do with this world, right? So you forget that there is a Day of Judgment. But that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us so many times, because people forget, because that's the real life. Because like we said, this is a test. This is a test, and the real life is going to happen after Judgment Day, and that day is coming when we are going to be asked about what we did. So in this Surah Al-Mursalat, this is there is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats a lot of times in the surah, Waylun yawma idhil lil mukaththibin. 10 times that's repeated, like, may the worst destruction be to those who lie. So it's a warning, basically, and this is people who lie, who basically lie about against Islam. It could be through actions, people who lie because their actions are not according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. So the winds that scatter. So it's really amazing. At the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that the winds have two functions. The winds can either destroy, or winds can either give life. That's really amazing. وَالْمُرْسِلَاتِ عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ أَصْفًا وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا. Like at the beginning, وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا, like those فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ أَصْفًا, like those winds there are winds that can destroy. وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا, like they're those winds that scatter and give life. So those winds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a full control. Like we have no control over the winds. If the winds are going to be destructive, they're going to cause like tornadoes or hurricanes, or winds are going to give life because they're going to distribute pollen and clouds and rain to the right areas. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us, and this is all controlled by the angels. This is what we understand at the beginning of the surah. The angels, they follow the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever they're asked to do. And in this, at the beginning of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he uses examples of previous nations, previous nations that have been destroyed. Like look in history, like whenever a nation thought like we're so powerful, like look at nowadays, you think like it's never going to end, right? You think, look at the world we're living in now. You have like electric cars, and you have like the iPhone, whatever the latest model is, and you have like new technology coming, and you think this is never going to end. It's only going to get more better, and it's processes are going to get more slick. But like look at what happened in the past. The nations of like Ad and Thamud, who thought they were the really top nations, it came to an end, right? So no nation lives forever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can finish any nation. This is a reminder, that things come to an end, and who knows how long this current cycle is going to last for before things come to an end, right? So we should remember, look at examples from past nations that, again, who have been punished, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said he destroyed them, and his punishment is quite severe. And he then again he reminds us that we have been created from like a fluid, right? A small drop of liquid, a fluid, and we have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he's made this earth a resting place for the living and the dead. Like this earth, everyone who's ever been born from beginning of time, everybody who will be born, and everyone who's ever died, where are they? They're in the earth, right? Meaning like they're somewhere in the earth, like they've been whatever people have done, with them. The earth has basically hidden these people, right? Either they're in the water or in the earth or whatever, but they're in this earth, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying the earth is a resting place for the living and the dead. Like subhanAllah, everyone is contained on this earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions punishments, some punishments and rewards of the hereafter as well. And he says those who, one of the things he mentions is like those who are being punished, like in the hereafter, they did not make sajda when they were told to. Like, they were told to make sajda, but they did not make sajda. So what happens? They will not be able to make sajda on the day of judgment, but they were not of those who made sajda. Yeah. So again, a reminder for us to keep up our daily salat. So we better make sure, we're those who do sujood, prostrate and do ruku as well in our salat. And the surah, it concludes basically with a very powerful question. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he finishes at the end of the surah, he mentions, فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَهُ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Like, what other message after this one, after this message, what other message will they believe in? فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَهُ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Meaning, if people reject this message, like the Quran, this message which is so clear, and this message which is the truth, if you reject it, there's nothing left. Like, what else can you believe in? Like, if you reject this, mean that you're not gonna, there's nothing else that's gonna be believable, because this is the truth. So he asked this question for people that reject the truth. There's no other message, there's no other book, there's no other religion that answers the main questions, the big questions of life, other than Islam. Like, why am I here? The purpose of life, what's gonna happen? Islam, everything fits in perfectly like bricks, brickwork. There's nothing missing, but no other way of life can answer this question. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked this question to people. How can you believe in anything else other than the book of the Quran, other than the Quran, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's the surah. I mean, there's a lot of other things, but we're just mentioning some points like we're doing. So going back to the story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, remember a time that humans didn't exist, but Al-Mursalaat, the winds that scatter, they did exist. They were there. And like we said, who spreads the wind? Who spreads the winds? It's the angels, right? The angels, they spread the winds because the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is for the angels. He commands them to spread the winds. And what else do the angels spread as well? They spread the winds and they spread also something else. Surah number 78. Which is, anybody help me with this surah? Surah number 78. Surah number 78 is, 78 is An-Naba. An-Naba. So now this is, we're entering like the last 30th juz of the Quran. So Surah number 78 is An-Naba. And An-Naba, which is the meaning of that. An-Naba, can anybody help me with that? What's the meaning? What's the translation of An-Naba? Okay, Jazakallah khairan for that. Thank you. Okay, as well, Jazakallah khairan. Yeah, the news. Yeah, so angels, they spread the winds and they also spread the news, in the sense that they spread the news, they spread the news of revelation, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to, he gave to Angel Jibril, for example. He gave his message, and Jibril spread this news. He gave this news to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they also spread the news. So this is how you can link these surahs together. So An-Naba, surah number 78, and again, this surah is like a really beautiful surah, and the eloquence in these surahs, like when you go through and when you listen to them, is like nothing can compare to it. Like there's no like music or anything else that can compare to the eloquence and beauty of the Quran. Like once you hear the Quran, that's it. Like that's what it attracts your heart, and nothing else can do that. So in this surah number 78, An-Naba, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he this is the news. So he talks about he asks the questions, really powerful language, and again it reminds people of Judgment Day and about an accountability, basically, that we're going to be accountable. But again, the amazing thing is that this surah is again about Judgment Day, but it's in a slightly different style. So every surah has its own style to make the point. And surah begins with a question: Amma yatasa'alun. What are they asking each other about? Because these people were questioning each other, like Amma yatasa'alun anin naba'il azim. What are they asking each other about? About the great news, الذي هم فيه مختلفون, about this great news, the one they disagree about. كلا سيعلمون, not at all, soon they'll come to know. ثم كلا سيعلمون, soon they'll come to know. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's asking, he's mentioning that some people in this, at the beginning of the surah, they're asking each other, like they're saying, what's that great news, or what's that great news that's going to happen, like, and it's about the day of judgment, but they're disagreeing over it, like they don't really believe it. They say, no, it's not really going to happen, this is just the day of judgment. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, no, soon they're going to know. كلا سيعلمون. So soon, very soon, like they're going to know about it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he goes on in the surah to examine the world around us, and he basically gives us like uh he gives us is telling us how some of the signs, amazing signs of the earth. Like he's telling us, look how the earth is like smooth, it's smoothed out. Look at the mountains. The mountains are so majestic. Look how we've been created in pairs. He created you in pairs, and he has made, he's made the sleep for you a resting place. Like you sleep at night, and he made the night a cover that we can basically find our relaxation in. So he's giving us like amazing signs that we need to just think about. So surely the one who's created this amazing universe, and he created all of us, he is able to, he can resurrect us all again. So this question about day of judgment and people making a mockery out of it, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is going to bring about the day of judgment, because just look at the signs around you, like all this complex creation, he's done it before. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on then in the surah to tell us about specific punishments in the hellfire, and blessings of Jannah as well. So again, he talks about, and this is all done, by the way, with such like amazing eloquence that a human being can't even come close to matching this. So when you go through the surah, like the rhyme scheme is amazing, because every surah has a rhyme scheme, and then sometimes when the rhyme scheme changes, the subject matter changes as well. So like for example, in the surah that we're talking about, Surah An-Naba, so in the beginning, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ النَّبَإِ الْعَظِيمِ الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ. So that has a rhyme scheme. And then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes the subject, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. You see? وَجَعَلْنَا نَوْمَكُمْ سُبَاتًا وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا. So this is also describing like the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we talked about, like he's created you in pairs. He talks about like the earth, the mountains as pegs. He talks about your sleep, the night as a covering. He talks about the day as a livelihood. وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا وَبَنَيْنَا فَوْقَكُمْ سَبْعًا شِدَادًا. And he built 7 strong ones. He built like 7 heavens over you. وَجَعَلْنَا سِرَاجًا وَحَاجًا. And he made like the sun an amazing shining lamp. And basically these are all signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the rhyme scheme continues. So the point I was going to just make is that this rhyme scheme of when we said alam naj'alil arda mihada, this rhyme scheme, it starts from there and it continues all the way to the end of the surah. And this was specifically talking about the sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and hellfire and Jannah. But at the beginning, the first few ayat, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks, the people question, like, what are they talking about? The questions of people, أَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ النَّبَإِ الْعَظِيمِ الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ. This is all in one different sort of rhyme. And then the rest of the surah is also when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts talking about the signs of his amazing signs, then that's a different rhyme scheme. And this happens a lot in other surahs. So this is just like some a point about how you can memorize Quran easily as well, because the rhyme scheme, and you can memorize the meanings, because a certain rhyme scheme sometimes has a certain is a subject matter, and as soon as the rhyme scheme changes, like subhanallah, then a new subject starts. So in the surah, like we said, this different rhyme scheme starts as soon as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts talking about his amazing signs and hellfire and Jannah as well. Okay, so words ending in are superlative to show intensity. Yes, that's the point as well. Like if it's ending in then that's another thing that it could show like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing like more intensity and more like severeness um in what he's talking about. So there's a whole like study behind this, and when if you do study it, then there's so many amazing things which come out of this. So uh okay, inshallah. So the surah ends by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he concludes the surah by mentioning a really scary scene on the day of judgment. Like he says, on the day, يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن. Like on this day, Jibreel and the angels are going to be standing in a row. They're going to be standing there, and no one is going to speak on the day of judgment except those who are Ar-Rahman, who he allows to speak. So no one can speak. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that we're going to be standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So be warned of this day. And everyone is going to be so frightened to speak, and no one can speak except whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives permission. And they are only going to speak the truth. They're only going to speak the truth on this day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is the day of truth. ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ الْحَقِّ. It's a day of haqq. It's a day of truth. So that's no denying, again, emphasizing the point of day of judgment. So we better prepare for this. And whoever wants to make an effort towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let them do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, let them make an effort towards him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's telling us, he's warning us of a near punishment. And he's asking us, especially if you compare, it's not far away, because if you compare this temporary world to the next world, it's only like an eyelid away. Like this world is temporary. This world is temporary, and if you compare this to the next world, like it's within a blink of an eye, it's just going to finish. Like it's not far away. And on the day, and the surah concludes where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, on that day, you're going to see the deeds. Everyone will see the deeds in front of them, and the kafir is going to say, "Ya laytani kuntu turaba." Like the one who had no faith, they're going to wish for, like the one who had no faith, they're going to say, "I wish I was dust. I wish I was turned to dust." And why will they say that? Like on that day, the disbelievers, they're going to say, "I wish I was turned to dust." Why? Because we understand they're going to see the animals, because the animals, like even I think we mentioned this, that even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's going to give justice between animals. So when one animal takes their justice from another animal who's maybe did something bad to them, all the animals are going to turn to dust. And the disbeliever, is going to be watching this. And he's going to say, "Oh, I wish I was dust. I wish I didn't exist, because I just don't want to be punished." And that's how terrible this day is going to be. So really, again, reminding us of the day of judgment. So just continuing on in our story, I'm saying angels spread the winds. So Surah number 77, Al-Mursalaat, the angels and the winds that scatter, they were there. Like humans didn't exist, but Al-Mursalaat, the winds that scatter, they were there. The angels spread the winds, and they also spread An-Naba, the news of the Akhirah. So like we said, this surah has a lot, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a lot about the day of judgment. And angels, they spread the news of the Akhirah to the prophets, like we mentioned. And that's what angels do. So angels have jobs, right? Some angels, they spread the winds. Some angels, they spread the news of the Akhirah to the prophets. Other angels have a different job. Can somebody tell me, what other jobs do angels have? As well as scattering the winds, bringing risk down, spreading news of the Akhirah to prophets. Other angels have a different job. Someone tell me that? Surah number 79?
Messages.
Yes, the angels deliver the message, but there's something very important that's going to happen to everybody. Like everybody's going to go through this.
Everybody about day of judgment.
Yep, but everybody's going to go through this. There'll come a time when everybody is going to. What's going to happen to everybody? Before that, what's going to happen to all of us? We're alive, but what's going to happen to all of us? One day we're going to all die, right?
Yeah.
So what are the jobs? What are the other angels have jobs of what? Basically. Of Surah number 79. Basically, other angels are Surah An-Naziat. Surah An-Naziat. Other angels are soul snatchers. They're soul snatchers. So basically, they take the soul. So this Surah An-Naziat, Nazia means soul snatchers, basically angels which take the souls. So angels. We're talking about angels. They spread the winds. They spread the news An-Naba, the news of the Akhirah to prophets. Other angels are An-Nazia, soul snatchers. So this is very, very important because it reminds us that we're going to die one day. And An-Nazia is again a beautiful surah with lots of eloquence. So we'll talk about the surah in detail next week, but just we just conclude maybe, and we just mentioned about that this again, there's a theme of this surah is the understanding the reality of the day of judgment, and just like the other surahs towards the end. And the surah begins with a reference to death and the angel of death, of soul snatchers. There are those angels, like there are those angels who take the souls of the wicked people so violently. It's like if you have a comb and you basically pull that comb through wet cotton. This is what we understand. If you have wet cotton and you pull that comb through wet cotton, it's going to be like so difficult, right? It's going to be difficult for that comb to move through wet cotton. It's going to like stick to it and snatch it and pull it, and that's how the soul of the wicked people comes out. It's going to be so painful like that. The souls of the angels will take out the souls of the wicked people. It's going to hurt them so much. When Naziyat but the souls of the good people are going to come out so smoothly. Like you pour a glass of water out. You get a jug and you pour a glass of water. You pour the jug into a glass. How easy the water comes out. That's how the souls of the good people are going to come out. These angels, they're going to take the souls, and the people are not even going to feel it. So these are the contrasting angels Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions at the start of the surah. One Naziyat gharqa, one Nashitat nashta. So the soul snatchers, basically, the souls of the evil people are going to be. It's going to be such a painful experience, but the death of the good people, their souls are going to come out easily. So we'll continue with the surah inshallah in the next session. And right now we can go through and just read through the story. Did anybody want to do that? Just read through this. We have about a minute and a half. So okay, inshallah. Okay, if you do, go ahead, do that quickly. If you just read through from the beginning up to surah number 79. Okay, go ahead, inshallah.
Al-Muzammil, the one wrapped up in a blanket in comfort, but stand for Tahajjud prayer to remember Allah. He was also Al-Mudaththir, the one covered up out of fear, but now warn others about Al-Qiyamah, the standing up. Don't stand up too proud like the arrogant Al-Insaan, human being. Instead, remember a dull time humans didn't exist. But Al-Mursalaat, the winds that scatter, were there. Angels spread the winds, and An-Naziat, An-Naba, the news of the Akhirah to prophets. Other angels are An-Naziat, the soul snatchers.
جزاك الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. May Allah bless you all.